On se retrouve en direct sur la télévision du
So we're
Festival
back
de Cannes
live from the Cannes Film Festival to welcome in a few moments the first press conference that's going to take place for Woody Allen's film, the opening film of the 69th Cannes Film Festival. Woody Allen and the actors are here. They're going to be answering questions from the international press. We'll be meeting to welcome Kristen Stewart, Jesse Eisenberg, Blake Lively, and Corey Stoll. We're going to look at a little extract from Café Society.
This is just in case you have questions in French, and if you don't understand French, but don't you? It's all right. This will be from translation. Yeah. Okay.
So the photographers are busy taking their pictures.
You'll have just a couple of minutes, and then we'll ask you to move away from the table so we can start the press conference. Messieurs les photographes, merci.
So thank you to the photographers.
Please, thank you. Bonjour. Hello. Please move away. Mesdames, Messieurs, bonjour à tous.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everyone. Bienvenue à la conférence de presse.
Welcome to the press conference on the opening film, Café Society.
Café Society.
I'm going to introduce the people at the podium.
Introduce everyone who's attending this panel with us today. Starting at your far right, geographically at least, he's had Oscars to fill a whole room for Coppola's Apocalypse Now, for Warren Beatty's Red, and he worked also with Mr. Bertolucci extensively, Last Emperor of China, Mr. Victorio Storaro. Sitting next to him, this is the second time he works with today's director. He played Hemingway in Midnight in Paris. As Ben here, Mr. Corey Stoll. Sitting next to me, for most of us, he was and will be forever Mark Zuckerberg in The Secret Network. He is what? Social.
In France, it was called The Secret Network.
Bite me, I'm French. As Bobby, actor, journalist, playwright, Jesse Eisenberg. Sitting next to Mr. Stoll, some of us did notice her and went, we need to keep an eye on this lady. It was in Ben Affleck's The Town, here as Veronica, Miss Blake Lively. Sitting next to Jesse Eisenberg, she was in the panic room with Jodie Foster, who has a film in competition this year. She was also in Into the Wild, directed by Sean Penn, who also has a film in competition this year. And she was, not long ago, in Sils Maria, directed by Olivier Assayas, who has a film in competition this year. Aren't you glad you're not on the jury? As Vonnie, Miss Kristen Stewart. sitting between the two charming ladies, the director, opening the festival for the third time, Mr. Woody Allen. And I think the first question will go to you, Mr. Allen, and you, Mr. Storaro. Mr. Allen, you've worked extensively and regularly with practically the same cinematographer, Gordon Willis or Carlo Di Palma. This is the first time you work with Storaro. How come? And this is the first time you shoot digital. How come?
This is a question to me?
Yes, sir, and to Mr. Storaro.
Oh. Well, for me, it was an experience to work with an iconic film cinematographer. I've worked with the best cinematographers in the movies. I've worked with for years with Gordon Willis and Carlo De Palma and Sven Nykvist and Vilmos Sigmund and Darius Kanji, and my path has not crossed with Vittorio's very often, but he was available, and I was making the film, and I asked him if he wanted to do it, and he said yes, and of course he's one of the absolute great cinematographer geniuses. So I had an opportunity to add another great cinematographer to the list of people I've worked with.
Mr. Serrara?
Well, actually, this is the third time that myself and Woody Allen are into one movie, into the same movie. The first time there was an episode movie, New York Story. I was part of the Francis Coppola episode. Meanwhile, Martin Scorsese with Nestor Almendros and Mr. Woody Allen with Sven Nykvist. We were in the same movie, but in two different episodes. After we did with Alfonso Arau a movie together, he was the leading actor, I was the cinematographer. And finally, now I had the opportunity to be directed by Mr. Woody Allen after so many years that we practically cross each other, let's say. Without doubt, cinematography as an art form, there is the chance to really underline the story visually, which is the most important thing, in my opinion, for us. But because we have a chance really, like the writer has the chance to use the word to tell the story, the musician has the note, we have the relationship between light and shadows and color, but without the story and without the director, I do not exist. So thanks to every director, they give me the chance to collaborate with them in the visual art form that is cinema. I had the chance to really learn how to live, because in my opinion, what we are doing in every professional is really knowing or not knowing, but we are trying to understand who we are. We are trying to understand the chance that we have to answer to our own questions, to have this chance to see the meaning of our life. And more and more and more, now I have to thank Mr. Woody Allen if I had another knowledge in my life. Thank you, Woody.
The question still stands, Mr. Allen. What convinced you to make the switch from film stock to digital?
To me, it was exactly the same. I mean, there's a camera, and it has to be lit, and it's the identical thing, except instead of a celluloid, you're working digitally, but the process, everything has to be composed, and you go through the exact same motions as if you were shooting with celluloid. And if anything, you have a few more options later because you're working digitally. But if you're working with a master photographer, the effect can be very, very beautiful, as you can see in the movie. So to me, it's the exact same thing. There was no compromises, no modifications, or anything had to be different because it was digital.
Thank you, Woody, for what you said, because I think it's very, very important for many, many directors, many cinematographers to understand the fact that we have to use the language of images. Digital is part of the language of progress. It's something that we can speed up or slow down, but we cannot stop it. Till now, Mr. Woody Allen, myself made most of all the picture in photochemically in films. But we realized that recently the industry changes completely. And we have to face it. But the most important thing is that we have to face it with knowledge. I noticed, I belong to the American Film Academy, European Film Academy, Italian Film Academy, and so on. And most of the time I see many films, they look the same. Why? Because I think that digital camera today is so sensitive that actually you can record an image in any location. And that was a mistake that many cinematographers, many directors are doing, practically not to use a specific language of vision, specific light, specific choice, to make that movie specifically according to the story. So what Woody says is very, very important, the fact that we didn't change the way that we are thinking. We were trying to understand which could be the visual concept to tell the story, and into the general overall visual concept, how we can visualize the Bronx in 1935, Hollywood in 1937, New York, back to New York in the High Society, back to Los Angeles in different moments. This interchange of energy following the leading character told to us the way that should be written visually this movie. The use of light and color followed that story. This is a major thing to know today, so each movie can look exactly according to the story, in the way it has been directed.
Question over here. Go ahead. Who has the mic?
Right here, Fabian Weinthal for Latin America. I had an interview a very long time ago with Jesse. He was just starting out. He was 18, and he told me a story that he just wrote a script about a young Woody Allen. And I asked you about what you think about fame, and I told you that I would come back 10 years later to ask you the very same question. So it's been more than 10 years. And here I am asking you the question, and also Woody Allen, what you think about fame, and what Woody Allen thinks about your script about Woody Allen.
I haven't gotten his notes yet, but no. This is not something we've ever discussed, so I appreciate you bringing it up here in public. Wait, but I can answer the safer part of the question about fame, which is that it can be very useful. And, you know, especially for like a career in the freelance arts, fame is probably the most valuable currency, for better or for worse. So it's helpful in a lot of ways. It's also uncomfortable, obviously, in a lot of ways, you know, because you lose, you know, a sense of privacy. But yes, the other part I hope to not bring up here, and I could just say, yeah, no. When I was 16, I was so inspired by discovering Woody Allen at that age that I wrote a script that was based on like him, and it got sent to agents because they thought it was funny, and it got sent to ultimately his lawyers who didn't think it was funny, and they sent me cease and desist letters, and that was the end of that. And it looks like now this might be the end of this.
Well, there's nothing I can add. I agree with Jesse about fame. There are great upsides to it and great downsides to it. My own opinion, after years in the spotlight, is that the perks far outweigh the downside. Celebrities often kvetch about the lack of privacy and being bothered by paparazzi and things like that. And these are not life-threatening problems, and they get enormous advantages as they go through life. So the perks are, you know, are much more advantageous than the downside. As far as, you know, if this was years ago, I would have played this part in the movie that Jesse is playing, because he's perfect for this kind of character. I would have played it much more narrowly myself, because I'm a comedian, not an actor, and so I would have given it one dimension. Jesse is a fine actor and gave it much more complexity and much more interest. But you know, the fact that people think that he's like me or that the character is like me is, you know, all I can say is it's much deeper played by Jesse than anything I would have done with it.
Question over here.
Hi, Rodrigo Fonseca from TV Globo, Brazil. Congratulations for the film. Mr. Woody Allen, could you please tell a few words about the narration used in the film? And if you could please tell us something about your partnership with Santo Loquasto, the production design. Yeah,
What was the first thing about?
The fact that you play the narrator in the film.
Oh, well, this movie was originally conceived, what I wanted to do is have the structure of a novel, a book. And I wanted it to be about a family and you met the father and mother, and you met the children and the brothers and sisters, and then Jesse, as the protagonist, got involved with other characters, with Kristen, with Blake, and Steve Carell, the uncle. And it was, I wanted it to have the scope of a novel that took place over a period of time, and there were not one single incident in it, but a number of different incidents. And I felt it should, like a novel, have the voice of the author in it. And since I was the author, I did the narration. Otherwise, I would have gotten somebody else to do it. But I figured, you know, I may as well do it myself because, you know, I wrote it and I could narrate, and it's cheaper. You know, so I did it, but it was supposed to have a novel form, the form of a book.
The fact that you play the narrator, Mr. Allen, did that sort of force Jesse Eisenberg to speak a la Woody Allen?
I don't think he does. You know, the character, the fictional character in the story, is really nothing like me. I never went out to Hollywood to try and get a job. I never got, I don't have a relative who I met. I didn't get involved with a woman out there or a woman in New York. I was not involved in any of this. So he just, you know, is hired to do the dialogue in the same sense that Steve Carell is hired to do the uncle's fast-talking, name-dropping dialogue, and Corey and Blake and Kristen were hired to do the appropriate dialogue for them. You know, I'm very happy to have the actors put it in their own words. They're not obligated to use anything I wrote. They can change the sentences and make them their own. So, you know, I don't see an acute similarity. I just see the similarity that's inevitably drawn when there's a character vaguely in the ballpark of something that one could believably say might remind them of me. But otherwise, you know, I don't see it so clearly as you do.
Jesse? Do you have a...
Well, we didn't know that he was going to narrate it, so there was no pressure on me to sound like that. But no, I mean, I could understand what you're saying, but I think it's just, again, like he just put it, kind of, yes, and the natural response to watching a movie with a male protagonist who vaguely resembles a protagonist that he would have played had he, you know, made it, you know, years ago when he would have been age appropriate. But no, there was no emphasis either from him or consciously from me to, you know, enact some kind of impression or something.
Okay, so my question was stupid.
Okay.
Okay,
You have a good seat.
Thank you.
Yeah, Peter Balhout, German television. I have a question to Mr. Allen. There was one line, one sentence in the film which struck me was, it said, life is a comedy written by a sadistic comedy writer. Could you comment on that?
Well, yeah, you know, you can look at life as being amusing. You see, the example I gave was a husband is cheating on his wife, and he's making all kinds of appointments to be secretive and have clandestine meetings. And you watch this, and it's funny. It's amusing to the outsider. It's got a farcical element to it, but it's also very sad. If you penetrate it more deeply, it becomes very sad because obviously the wife is being betrayed and the people have empty lives and they're carrying on an affair. And so you can look at it as amusing, but it's got a very sad element to it. And when you hear people say, well, what are you going to do? I have to laugh at it because if I don't laugh, I'll kill myself. What they're really saying is that, they're adopting a comic perspective to an existence that's fraught with peril and sadness and cruelty.
Question over there.
Hello. It's Jack Mulvin from The Times here at the back. Hi. This is a question for Jesse and Kristen and Woody. There's a line in the film where it got a good laugh, by the way, saying that Hollywood is boring, nasty, and dog-eat-dog, and I was wondering if this reflected what your experiences of what Hollywood is like.
I'm more interested in what they have to say. I don't know. Yeah, do you? Well, you grew up there. So no.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an undeniably opportunistic, hungry, insane fervor that occurs, and it's really apparent. Who's that? It's really apparent when people don't care about that kind of stuff, and what drives you is sort of like, the things that get you up in the morning, like the things that, if you're actually an artist that wants to tell a story, it's a compulsion. It's not something that you do because you want to entertain people or because you want to make a bunch of money. And but most people want to entertain people and make a bunch of money. It's not a bad thing. But if it also doesn't hold hands with like genuine, just desire, if no one was looking, yeah, then that sucks, and that's pretty rampant. Yeah, Hollywood, people are, I think human beings are always like clawing at each other to get on top. I think that's kind of in every walk, probably in most industries, but Hollywood's pretty, it can have like a surface nature that makes it more obvious, yeah.
The question actually could also go to Corey and to you, like.
What?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm not, nothing. I just agree with Kristen. Hollywood in the 30s was dominated by the studios, and it was a very dog-eat-dog, cutthroat world with I'm sure you've read about all the film moguls and the studio heads and the terrible internecine carnage that went on and backbiting and if you've read the Pat Hobby stories by Scott Fitzgerald, you see what Hollywood was, in those years, and it's famous. Now, I'm sure, as Kristen says, it was true of many businesses, of big business, of Wall Street, of politics, but it was very illuminated in Hollywood. Everything that was done in Hollywood, from film industry, ethics to their love lives and divorce rates and things, were always super covered and very hot news all over and more exciting news to the public. But it was a dog-eat-dog industry and full of, and probably still is for all I know.
It's like the most gnarly popularity contest like in the world. It's like you take high school and you just make it like in the real world and it just amplifies everything. It's like pretty intense.
Sorry, Blake? Any comment?
I think they said it pretty well. I think back in the 30s, the studios were probably bit more dominating than they are now. They owned actors and filmmakers, where now I think it's more the media that is more dog-eat-dog and invasive, and the more access people have to knowledge, the more they want to know it. And if they don't have access to knowledge, they'll just make it up. So that's sort of the thing now that's probably more challenging.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
Most of the people I've worked with have been really nice.
Just smile.
I mean, I don't engage in Hollywood in the same way that a lot of other people here on the stage do. So I've been incredibly fortunate to work with people who are happy doing what they're doing, and this was definitely one of those experiences.
Okay. Question here. And then
question for German TV ZDF, Mr. Allen. Two very short questions. Why are your films never in competition? And second question, do you have any Cannes rituals? Thank you.
This is to me. Why am I never in competition? I don't believe in competition for artistic things. You know, competition is great in sports, where that's the object of it. But you make a film. Look, the jury will award a film. You know, they'll say, call it the best film. I may find it the most boring film at Cannes. Someone else finds my film boring. Someone else loves it. It's all very subjective, and you can't determine is a Rembrandt better than an El Greco, is a Matisse better than a Picasso. You can say what your favorite is, and that's fine. You can say, I came to Cannes, I saw 10 films, and this is my favorite one, and this is my favorite one. You might get 10 different opinions, but that's perfectly reasonable. But for people, any group, to come together and to judge the work of other people, first of all, is something I would never do. And to make a judgment that this is the best, with the implication that is in some platonic way it's the objective best, is something I don't believe in, so I don't want to participate in it. I'm happy to come to Cannes. I love the atmosphere. I love the enthusiasm of the crowds and the fact that everybody's here about movies, and I run into people I know, and you talk cinema, and that's a great atmosphere. And the south of France is a beautiful place to be for a few days. It's charming. But to be in competition would be against, you know, my common sense.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Inger Merete Olsen from Norwegian newspaper Dagbladet. Congratulations on a lovely movie. I have a question for Mr. Allen. There are some romantic motifs that you keep returning to that are also found in this film. The attraction between a younger woman and an older, powerful man, the lure of another woman when you're in a marriage. Why do you keep returning to these motifs, and have your thoughts and feelings about them changed during the years? Do you tell those kind of stories differently now from what you used to? Thank you.
What'd she say?
Shall I do it again? Shall I do it again?
No. It's the microphones. You know, I have hearing aids, and I put the microphones over my hearing aids to give me a double kind of shot here, and still not working for me. So
about the romantic motifs. Why? Why?
What'd she say?
How do you decide on your romantic motifs?
Oh, I had always thought of myself as romantic. Now, this is not necessarily shared by the women in my life. But I have always thought of myself as a very romantic character. And I think if you were to ask the women, some of them might say that they thought that I was, but I think they're thinking of it in a different way. They're not thinking of it as romantic in the sense you think of Clark Gable or Cary Grant romantic. They're thinking more like a romantic fool. And they think that I romanticize New York City, that I romanticize the past, that I romanticize relationships, love relationships, and I probably do, and it probably is foolish, but for some reason I was brought up on Hollywood movies, and they had an indelible influence on me, and so this is what I tend to do. And so, you know, I think that I do romances, and I've tried to be romantic, and I try and make the movies romantic sometimes. Not, when the story calls for it. This was a romantic movie. You know, Match Point was not a romantic movie. Other films I've done, you know, Zelig was not a romantic movie. This one happens to be. But I do tend to do a certain amount of romantic movies because it comes from my upbringing, my childhood.
Mr. Allen, here, over here. Thanks for your film. I've got a question. You're 80 now. Does it become physically harder to direct a movie? And what do you do to keep in shape on set?
I'm 80. I can't believe it. You know, I'm so youthful, agile, nimble, spry, you know, mentally alert that it's astonishing. Now, I don't know. I eat well, I exercise, but what it is luck. You know, my parents were old. My father lived to slightly over 100, and my mother lived to almost 100. So if there's anything in heredity, you know, I hit the jackpot. It's great. But I don't feel old. I feel, you know, I feel youthful. Now, I'm sure one day I'll wake up in the morning and, you know, I'll have a stroke or something, and, you know, I'll be one of those people that you see in a wheelchair, and they'll say, remember him? He was Woody Allen, and he was always, you know, and now look, he's doing this, and he's, you know. But until that happens, I was gonna continue to make films as long as the people are foolish enough to put up the money to support me.
Hello, my name is Rodrigo González from La Tercera newspaper, Chile. I have a question to Mr. Allen. Why always in your films there's some character that is leaving the Judaism and converting to Christianism or some kind of religions who have afterlife?
What?
About some Jewish traits in the characters that you portend, sometimes the switch in religion.
And the comparison to Christianity.
Yeah, you know, I write about what I know. I grew up in a Jewish family. You know, interestingly enough, in this picture, Cafe Society, probably the mother and father are the two people, you know, that are closest to anything in my life. The brother that Corey played, or the character Blake and the character Kristen plays, I wouldn't know from a hole in the wall. But the mother and father, who, you know, are constantly bickering and berating one another and occasionally speaking in Yiddish, is how I grew up. And so it's easy for me to write about. It's just simple. I can be authentic about it because I lived through it.
We'll take two more questions, just the lady and then the... Go ahead.
It's a question for Mr. Allen. You talked very eloquently about old age and romance, and I wondered if you are ever going to make a series of films where 50-something women have affairs with 20-something men.
For 50-year-old women and 30-something men?
20, you know, just the reverse of what it is.
Yeah, I try and I wouldn't hesitate to do that if I had a good idea for a you know, for a story with a 50-year-old woman and a 30-year-old man. It's not a commonly seen thing, and I don't have a lot of experience to draw on for material, but it's a perfectly valid comic idea to have the age difference between two people in that direction. When I was 30 years old, I was I had a big crush on a 50-year-old woman who was great looking and wonderful, but she was married and wouldn't go near me with a 10-foot pole. But she was great. These things happen all the I just don't have a lot of experience. I don't see it. But younger men do develop crushes on older women, and older women crushes on younger men, and I just don't have any material of it. I don't have, I don't have anything really to draw on. But I wouldn't hesitate if I had a good story.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Brian Johnson from Maclean's magazine in Canada. And Mr. Allen, you were talking about how you like to let the actors do what they want with your script. I want to ask Kristen Stewart, what did it feel like to be in that zone? Every actor who works with Woody Allen talks about how it's a very different kind of filmmaking. Was that comfortable? Was that, did you feel pressure? And also, if I can ask you, Mr. Allen, why you cast Kristen Stewart, what you saw in her that you felt made her perfect for that role?
Well, I'll let her go first. You asked her a question.
Okay. If you listen to a song and you know that band, and maybe you don't know that song, you can kind of go, "Oh, I recognize that. I'm pretty sure I know that." Really? No, I'm kidding. I mean, somebody. Sorry. Okay, so basically, it's immediately recognizable if it's a familiar artist. His movies have that. They're just absolutely particular. And at first, I was really aware of that and wondered if I was ever going to fit into it. I've always worked extremely, or at least the work that's I've really enjoyed and my better work. It's really impulsive and really spontaneous, and I haven't really had to step outside of my natural default settings, my personality, my demeanor. So in this case, I was I approached it in a way that I luckily abandoned almost immediately once we started filming. But at first I thought that I was going to have to learn every single line perfectly, and we were going to, he doesn't rehearse or anything like that, but I felt as though I needed to prepare. And I'm really bad at that. And it didn't really work out. And luckily, once we got going, that tonal quality that's so familiar and immediately recognizable, it just happens intrinsically. It just is sort of, I don't know, it just happens. And who knows, maybe we didn't do it, but I think we kind of nailed it. And yeah, it was really natural once we actually found the character, and once I actually got comfortable with that version of myself. It's never like completely changing yourself, but it's like finding things that are a little bit more buried. And I think that's probably, he probably saw something in me that I didn't, and that's the best feeling in the world. That's why I really like doing this. It's the best relationship you can have with a director, is when they show you something about yourself you didn't know.
In answer to your second part, she was a perfect person for the part. Juliet Taylor, my casting director, and myself were speculating on who to cast, and as soon as Kristen's name came up, we both immediately figured she was the one. I needed somebody who could play an adorable little secretary from Nebraska with little white socks on and little dresses, and she could be this sweet little girl that you thought of, just as cute as a button, and you'd believe it. And then later in the movie, you could see her in furs and jewels, and she would look just smashing and elegant, and could play that character, having transformed her life in a different way. And we thought Kristen could do it, that she would be perfectly believable as a sweet, naive thing from Nebraska, and she would be completely believable as a sophisticated beauty in cosmopolitan Manhattan. So it was a no-brainer. We called her up, and she was available, and we were lucky to get her.
And I auditioned for this part too. I was like, I really had to prove myself, because I don't know if that like flitty, lovely little lady thing was necessarily something that he saw initially, because I definitely had to prove that.
Yeah. We sent her something to read, and she read it, and it confirmed our feelings that she could do both sides of the character.
I'm afraid our time is up. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here today.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for having us. Nice.
The rhythm of your speech. Thank you very much.